coverage is getting better each and every week, and their players are figuring it out.
I think there's a huge edge in this thing for good putters and good short game wizards.
Dr. Chapinski wants to do it again. Yes!
Welcome back. It's week 2 of the TGL. Joe Idone, how are you doing this morning?
Yo, Keith Stewart, what's going on, my friend? Excited to break down match 3 for you. Talk about what I saw from the SoFi Center in match 2 as well. But we get the Bay back in Palm Beach Gardens this week. Let's break it all down.
Yes, Tuesday evening, 5 p.m., a quick one on the mothership, ESPN. We're going to get the Bay versus the defending SoFi Cup champions, the Atlanta Drive, who we already saw last week in the opening match. But before we get to all of that, I know you were there live on Friday. You got to share with everybody what went down in the press room. I just can't believe my ears.
Yeah, let's pull the video. Let you hear it for yourself.
Oh, man.
Rory, quick question. Now that Brooks Koepka has left Live,
Joe, keep an
is
eye
there a
on
possibility he'll join
Keegan and
TGL?
Michael's faces.
I would say that's up to people that are more powerful and more important than me, but I am one of the founders. I would love him to play.
There you have it.
All right, Joe. I mean, everyone that knows Joe Idone, our resident TGL expert, right? And welcome back to the show, my friend, knows that you are a big Brooks Koepka fan. You're sitting in the press room. What's your reaction to that going down?
I mean, to me, Keith, you're kind of seeing the writing on the wall, and it might as well be in permanent marker, if you ask me. When one of the co-founders of the league and the most important active player in the league makes a statement like that, to me, it seems like the door is wide open. You know, as kind of we know behind the scenes, it's been a bit of a tough year for Brooks, both personally as a parent, struggled for the most part of major season, but something kind of clicked. There's a brightness at the end of the tunnel, and, you know, a 12th at Oakmont, nearly won the French Open, of course. There's another run in him. I believe that. He's just 35, Keith. And the thing is you know this, I don't have to tell you, but sometimes professional golf has a way of getting in their own way. I'm hoping we can avoid that here. Common sense will prevail, and whatever barriers would block him from playing in the PGA Tour or TGL, I believe should be broken down. And as Rory said at the end of that question, if he decides he wants to play, we should find a way to include him. I believe that's probably going to happen here in the near future if he wants to.
Now, Joe, you were in the arena, so I'm not sure that you followed this or not, but pregame show, Scott Van Pelt had Rory on, and he asked him the same question, and Rory gave the same answer. That was the second time that question was asked that night. And I know, thinking back to whatever it was, December 23rd, when the news dropped that Brooks was leaving Live, that was the first thing that you texted me. You were like, get him in the SoFi Center. I know you've been thinking about this. Scott Van Pelt's thinking about this. Obviously, Rory's thinking about this. Everybody's thinking about this. And when it comes down to me, I mean, the simplest answer should just be the right one. Seems to me that there's a team down in Jupiter that has a massive hole for star power that's needed, because let's be honest, there can't be a chance that Tiger Woods is going to play this year if he hasn't played in anything, that the first thing he's going to do is is going to risk his back surgery by swinging into a simulator, right? We're not going to see him till Magnolia Lane. I mean, Brooks on Jupiter Links, how easy is all of this?
We'll see if it happens. It makes too much sense. It's probably ultimately up to Brooks and the competition committee at TGL in terms of how quickly this happens. But until it does, it's all speculation.
Okay, so you talk about the speculation point, but I'm going to push you a little further, because you know and I know that the TGL comms department, right, released a statement yesterday that CEO Mike McCarley is making an official statement before match 3 tomorrow afternoon at 3:15 p.m. Eastern time. I mean, we've seen sponsors, we've seen new holes, we've seen substituted players. All of these things have happened, and McCarley has not come to the mic. So what could be bigger than an amazing new sponsor than a bigger player that it's won, I don't know, 5 major championships in like the last 7 years?
It's what my mind initially went to. You know that. We'll have to wait and see. There could maybe a new team, maybe additional new players. I'm really not sure. There's a bit of mysterious lore about it. Hopefully, we get some information that we're happy to share before then. We will do so. But you're right. Before the match, 3:15, it's going to be streamed, I believe, by TGL, and you'll be there on site to cover it as well. Can't wait for the news.
All right. Now you and I both keep mentioning the fact that match 3 is happening on Tuesday afternoon. And this show, of course, the TGL show, is a preview show. So let me give you a quick rundown. I need to get some takeaways from you from match 2 last Friday Night Lights, an amazing competition between the LA Golf Club and the Boston Common Golf. They came away with their first victory. We got to update our rankings, and then we'll get into the previews. Of course, bets. So let's take me back to Friday night, Joe. All right, you're in the SoFi Center. There's a lot of tension in the room. Folks, this is not hyperbole. I'm not building this up, right? Keegan, Rory, these guys, they haven't won, and they know it. It's the elephant in the room, and then they go take on LAGC. What are your takeaways from match number 2?
It was a great match. We saw a lot of birdies, Keith. One thing that we didn't see, obviously, in match 1, chip-ins, long putts, shot-making galore. I think both teams strategized and played really well. And what we saw, and I'll bring it on screen now, is, what we always talk about, right? The difference in the match and the difference between who wins and loses ultimately comes down to who effectively uses the hammer. We'll talk more about Boston's new strategy later, but 3-0 on hammer points 1. They made a couple big putts that negated LA hammers as well. So you win 3-0 in that department, you're ultimately always going to win the match.
Hey, the trend is your friend. You go back to Atlanta, and they did the same thing. They were 3 points ahead in hammers, and these matches are tight. You can see it, right? There was 5 lead changes. There were points scored on 11 of 15 holes on Friday night, and at the end of the day, Boston Common Golf made like 85 feet of putts, and that's what sealed the deal. Thorbjornsen was a total stud, right? He made 4 putts, 2 eagle putts. One with hammer on the line on the 4th hole. I mean, that whole scenario, the back and forth between hole 4 and hole 5, where Thorbjornsen makes both of those putts, is just unbelievable. And then, it's really coming down to, for me, and you and I keep talking about this, it's how many birdies can you make, which means making putts, and how do you play out those hammers?
Absolutely. The hammer is important, but the second component there, like you mentioned, is the putting. The green zone is radically different. They've added 1,500 square feet, as you saw in the match number 1. They've expanded it. They've softened some of the slopes that makes a lot of the pin locations more accessible, which allows players to be more aggressive putting. I mean, you remember that big plateau last year, Keith. Guys had to putt so defensively up and down it to avoid a 3-putt. Now you're able to much easier navigate some of those slopes. Thorbjornsen, like you said, nobody had ever made 3 10-footers in TGL before. Thor made 4 last week. So Boston, 87 feet of made putts. LA, just 24 feet. That in combination with the 3-0 hammer match is sort of how you ultimately win.
Hey, Boston, 7 birdie or better scores. It comes down to it. LA, 3, a better use of the hammer. And Boston walks away with their first ever TGL victory. So it begs the question, Joe, when we get to the power rankings, right, where are they going to fall on your board? So let's do it. Let's get into this week's power rankings.
All right, power rankings this week. And you know what happened, Keith, is Boston Common is up to the 1 spot. Maybe a little overreaction Monday here out of the Tour Picks camp. But look, the addition of having the analytics guy in terms of the – look, first things first. We can agree they've got the best player in the league, right? So you have Rory McIlroy, you pair him with Keegan Bradley, and you probably have the deepest roster of reserves when you can choose from Hideki, Adam Scott, or now Michael Thorbjornsen on the bench for that 3rd spot. But the guy I want to talk about is Teddy Metropolis, Keith. I don't know if you've met him before, but he's the VP of team operations. Teddy is the guy that you saw Keegan Bradley running over and consulting with on Friday. I asked Keegan about the presser. They have deployed a full analytics team and resources to figuring this out this year on whether to accept or decline the hammer. Teddy holds a chart with hundreds of scenarios that basically tell you whether to accept or decline it. It's just using probabilities, Keith, right? You won't always get it right, but if you understand when the numbers are in your favor on whether to hit or whether to stand in blackjack terms, over the long term, you're going to make those more sound decisions. And we saw that play out on number 13. Actually, Keegan used a timeout and went over to talk to Teddy. Him and Rory wanted to decline it and essentially give LA that point. Teddy said, take the hammer. Justin Rose misses a short putt. Rory makes his. You wash the hole, and you ultimately win the match because of it. So I think that they have the best roster. I think that they have now deployed a positive scenario for utilizing the hammer properly. I'm going to give them the one spot in my rankings this week. What about you?
Well, here's the thing. And the way that played out on TV, and I'm not sure with the Farmers Insurance, earplugs that you could hear what Teddy had to say to Keegan, but Keegan ran over like he was going to present his case, and Teddy was like, this is what you're doing. Yeah. And to me, that reminded me of another team that's very successful with the hammer, because when you've got, who running the helm, Ben Helmrich down there at Atlanta Drive, you get stuff done. And that's, for me, why Atlanta has now jumped up to number one. It's no longer LA. Obviously, Boston makes a big jump. But the thing that makes the biggest impression on me is that I know we're wrapped up in this, but we've already lost 2 matches. We're going to have a 3rd match already. We only get 15 regular season matches. When you look at the overall odds board on FanDuel, teams drop very quickly once they have a loss. Now, I know it's not the end of their season. We know the late run that New York Golf Club did last year, but when it comes down to it, and the odds of winning the SoFi Cup and going the distance, losses really add up. When you only get 5, this isn't a FedEx Cup Tour season when you've got 100 events to play in and earn points, right? You've got 5 matches as a team, and it's a really big deal. And, my power rankings reflect that accordingly. Now, hey, guess what? Tons of people tuned in for the show last week. And I know you and I, we were humbled. We put this all together because you and I both love TGL. But everyone's comments were like, hey, you guys got to expand on the preview. So you know what? I'm cutting my rankings short right there. Let's take everybody to what matters most. Atlanta Drive versus the Bay Golf Club. Hit me.
That is Tiger.
The only team to beat the Atlanta Drive in the regular season last year was the Bay Golf Club. It was the President's Day triple header. It was the middle match. Atlanta had come off that overtime win against LA. Tons of emotion. 6-5. The Bay wins. This is who we have coming this week, Joe. How psyched are you for this match?
Yeah, excited for this match. First match for the Bay. I think they roll out their strongest lineup here, in my opinion. It's been so long, Keith, we forget what a dominant team the Bay was for most of season 1. They led TGL in driving accuracy, greens and regs, short putts made, triple hole won. I mean, they were the team to beat. Atlanta goes back with Mr. TGL, the house that Horschel built. He'll be back in the SoFi Center. Chris Gotterup gets his second start, and they activate the Iceman off the IR. Patrick Cantlay in the 3 spot there. He's going to go head-to-head with Wyndham Clark, who, let's not forget, in an awesome season 1 match that you mentioned there where the Bay won, Clark went head-to-head against Cantlay in that singles portion. Clark won both those holes, 2-0 versus Cantlay in that final spot, propelled the Bay to a 6-5 win, which is still to this date Atlanta's only loss inside the SoFi Center. Excited for this matchup on Tuesday.
This is going to be a good one for sure. You got to remember, they also played in the first round of the semifinals in the SoFi Cup playoffs, and that's when Atlanta came back and really hammered them 9-3. So 1-1 in season 1 between these two teams. I'll officially go over the lineup cards here and give you the FanDuel odds. The Bay, we've got Shane Lowry, Ludwig Oberg, then following up with Wyndham Clark. Then you got, for the Atlanta Drive, we've got Billy Horschel, Chris Gotterup. Interesting to me that Gotterup, who was great on approach, he had 3 approaches with inside 20 feet in his first ever TGL match. And then, of course, you mentioned it, Patrick Cantlay. He is their anchor man. He's going to be going against Wyndham Clark. And Wyndham Clark was very strong as you mentioned, even against Cantley. But Wyndham Clark had a great season. As you remember, he was in the lineup for that playoff matchup, the semifinals against the Atlanta Drive, and he got pulled at the last second due to that neck injury. And then Minwoo Lee had to step in. So I think Wyndham Clark's going to be fired up to get back in the SoFi Center. Odds right off the bat, Atlanta Drive heavy favorites -138, the Bay Golf Club +110. Don't give me your lean yet, but just looking at those odds, what's your first reaction?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, Atlanta's had the chance to see some of the new radical holes, at least Horschel and Goddard. I wonder a little, the kind of unknown and uncertainty of all this is Patrick Cantlay. We saw him there on match one, showed up in dress shoes and slacks like he just came from church, nursing an injury at the time. Just 8 days later now, Keith, is he healthy? We're going to have to find that out Tuesday night.
Well, the word from inside his camp, it was very precautionary. So maybe he just had a little bit too much eggnog on Christmas. From what I understand, he looked pretty darn healthy walking around match one, during the pregame time when you and I are out there on the SoFi Center floor. So to me, I think Patrick doesn't play unless Patrick thinks he can win. You know that for sure. And when you look at this layup, Joe, like real quickly, what's your first impression? They've moved some holes around. Our favorite hole is now over in singles. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but like the course preview for match 3, a lot of things are similar, but there are some things that are different. Your first impressions.
Yeah, we'll talk about the full course in a second. I got to bring to the stage my favorite hole in TGL, Keith. This is the Stinger, man. It's been pure carnage, and I was kind of wondering a little bit of your opinion on how you think it's going to play out. The interesting part about it is it goes from the alt shot triples period to now will be a singles hole in the match this week. Ludwig versus Chris Goddard. Sometimes I can get a little into the data weeds here, so pull me back if you need to. But looking at kind of the driver stats from Ludwig and Chris Goddard, they're drastically different. Goddard hits it really low off the tee, 8-degree launch, 97 feet apex last year. Probably a good reason why he played so well over in Scotland and Ireland, is he can hit it really low. And Ludwig, on the contrary, hits it very high, 10.7-degree average on loft, 125-foot apex. Goddard seems like the guy who's much more comfortable naturally hitting it low. But the real question is, Keith, is pulling driver even the move here? Because all 3 players so far that we've seen pull driver on this hole have hit the rock, have ended up in the penalty area. Michael Thorbjornsen last week was the only guy I've seen thus far hit 3-iron and was able to avoid it. Do you think driver's still the play on this wild hole?
The best way I can answer that question for you is twofold. Number one, Thorbjornsen, his apex was 17 feet.
Yeah.
17 feet. They estimate the cliff is somewhere around 35 to 40 feet high. So he was at 17 feet. So I really don't care what club you hit, but it's got to be under 25 feet. Otherwise, you're taking some of that rock outcropping into play. The second thing is that there's probably not a lot of people in the world like myself that have seen Tiger's Stinger live. That thing was literally like cap high, right? The brim of your cap. When that thing came off the tee, I'll never forget the first time I saw it live. It was at Bay Hill, the 11th hole. He takes the 2-iron out. I'm standing right there, face on caddy view, right on the tee box, right on the rope, and he just laces this thing. And I was like, I looked down the fairway and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That thing is like literally 10 feet off the ground, and it is like a missile. And if you're going to name it for Tiger, you better be able to hit that shot. Thorbjornsen did it very, very well. It'll be interesting to see because, as you mentioned, Oberg, he's a modern bomber. He likes to hit it high. He's going to need to hit like a 30-yard hook with his driver around that entire kind of mountain cliff in the front. I think he's going to have to go to a low iron, and I think it's right in Goddard's wheelhouse.
Yeah, I think so too. Here's the rest of the course. I'll bring it up now. Any thoughts on the other 15 holes? We see a new one here for the Bay, right?
We absolutely do. Bay Breaker, which we've seen last year. It's another one of these renovated holes. There is, more so than 404. 404, the force carry off the tee is 290. Bay Breaker, the force carry off the tee for the advantage side, the golden tee side is 300 yards. And you've got Shane Lowry teeing off there. So it's kind of interesting that they put him in that tee shot going after that hole. This kind of get to a bigger point, and I just want to get a quick reaction from you. It
Yeah.
seems like the TGL officials always seem to use the same blueprint over and over and over again. I mean, all of the team holes are these par fives. They're putting them in the same spot. They're on the in the scorecard. It seems like we're always kind of winding up the scorecard. The triples always ends with a par five. Then the singles always starts with a par five. Or the final three holes seems to be always a drivable par four on the rocks and then a par five. I feel like we should mix it up a little bit. I don't want these guys to ever feel like they're settled. How do you feel about these scorecard setups?
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a layout and a prototype in place. There seems to be repeating. I like the fact that we do get singles. We get Sterling, Singer, and Stenote kind of back to back to back with some fireworks here to start singles. It's interesting. They always have this good mix of 5 par threes, 5 par fours, 5 par fives. You mentioned that all of the team holes, a lot of them just repurposed holes from last season, and they add a Golden State Bridge or the Mercedes-Benz Dome or something to the background.
Yeah.
I would love to see an additional element to give the team like a real bona fide home field advantage there. And I haven't like fully fleshed out this take, Keith, but some sort of actual team advantage on one hole per match would be really cool. Maybe they get like a putt line that shows up on the green that kind of gives them the break, or something that is going to give that team the feel of hosting a home game, which is, I think, what they were going for here. I think could be additive in the future. And we know that TGL isn't afraid to kind of make those adjustments mid-season if they see something that will enhance the gameplay. So would love to see these team home holes give a real advantage to that team for one hole a match. I think would be a cool element to kind of break into the future with that.
All right, Joe, speaking of advantages, who are you giving the advantage to on Tuesday afternoon or evening, depending on when you're watching? 5 p.m. ESPN, again, match number 3, Atlanta Drive Golf Club versus the Bay Golf Club. Second match for Atlanta Drive, first one for the Bay in season 2. Who are you leaning for?
It's hard for me to go against Atlanta Drive, Keith. They put so much money in my pocket over the last year that I'm kind of beholden to them at this point. But to be honest with you, I think it's pretty evenly matched. And TGL is so extremely nuanced and dependent upon the hammer, which we've obviously discussed at length. It's different than betting a regular PGA Tour event because if they played these things over 72 holes in TGL, the better team would ultimately almost always prevail. But the fact of the matter is they play 15 holes, right? If you flip a coin 72 times, you're going to get close to 50-50. You introduce randomness the shorter that you make that variable. So when you look at the betting odds from FanDuel, Atlanta's minus 138. That's a lot of juice to me. It implies that they probably win this match at about 65% win rate, according to the sports books. I give the roster edge to the Bay, the hammer edge to Atlanta. But I think ultimately we have a pretty close match. Where are you leaning?
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go with 2 quick factors from my end. My pick's going to be Atlanta. I know we got to lay a bunch, but if we've learned anything with Ben Helmreich at the helm, the Atlanta Drive manager, that they're going to come out on top on the hammer differential. And they did it all last season, whereas the Bay and their manager, Josh Seipel, he's got to have his hands full going against Ben and the strategy. And I think you're right. I think overall, when you look at the talent level of the 2 lineups, you definitely want to give the edge to the Bay. But between the hammers and what we've seen with the hammers being so effective in matches 1 and 2 in season 2, and the second thing is, and a lot of people are going to overlook this, but as a PGA professional, I'm always about playability. 9 of the holes that they're going to play on Tuesday evening are the same holes that Atlanta Drive played against New York in match 1. Every other hole in triples, they've played them before. And 4 of the 6 holes in singles, talking about the 2 new ones, Cenote and Stinger. Well, and 3, and what, Stone and Steeple. All 3 of those are in singles now. And that's 3 of the 4 holes that Atlanta Drive's played before. Atlanta Drive, with their experience on 9 of the 15 holes and with the hammer, I'm going to go Atlanta Drive.
Yeah, I like that pick. I mean, they've until you prove me otherwise, Atlanta's got
Yeah.
the edge here. They've the team to beat between Ben. Obviously, Patty and Billy are built for TGL, and Chris Gotterup able to shake a little bit of rust. You know, you walk into that arena and you start hitting bunker shots with 18 rows of fans in front of you. It's a little bit different experience. So Gotterup being able to experience that once before was really refreshing, kind of some of these young new faces who are excited to be in there. I know you'll be there Tuesday all day covering not only the big announcement from TGL before the match, but the entire match. And I'll be joining you as well. So excited for match 3, Bay, Atlanta, 5 p.m., right? Early start over there on ESPN, correct?
Yes, absolutely. 5 p.m. ESPN. All right, one more prediction. What's McCarley's announcement going to be?
I think he's going to announce a new team, maybe 2 new teams.
Okay.
What
well,
do
we
you
all
think?
know last May they got the patents on Chicago Lynx Golf Club and the Texas Golf Club. Certainly the Texas Golf Club and the anticipation of a Jordan or a Scotty joining the league would be a big deal. I'm with you. As much as I want him to say Brooks is replacing Tiger this year, to just kind of blow this thing off the map and just make it like incredibly popular. As popular as this show, quite frankly, I think it's going to be the announcement of a new team. It seems like something they've been working on from you and I being behind the scenes. And speaking of behind the scenes, if you want to continue to watch the TGL show, you can check us out on YouTube. You can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, however you consume these types of shows. Joe and I want to keep this thing tight. We're at right around 20 minutes, so we're going to get out of here. This is the preview for, of course, match number 3, Atlanta Drive Golf Club versus the Bay Golf Club, ESPN, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. Of course, got to thank all of you for watching. A ton of you watched and listened last week. Got to thank our producers, Golf Space Collective, and, of course, all the support we get from the TGL team, all of the highlights and everything else that we receive from them. They've been absolutely fantastic in putting together this show. Any last words of wisdom before match number 3, season 2, Mr. Joe Idone, our resident TGL expert?
Yeah, excited to be there once again, Keith. Thanks to the TGL team, as you mentioned. If you have a friend who's into TGL, tell them to sub to this channel. Leave us a comment. Give us a thumbs up on the video. We want as many people to see this as possible, and I've really enjoyed doing it with you, Keith. I'll see you Tuesday.